Welcome back to Become a Calm Mama. I'm your host. I'm Darlene Childress. I'm a life and parenting coach. And on the episode today, I want to talk to you about the connection tool. The connection tool is a tool that I created several years ago to help parents emotionally coach their kids when they're having big feeling cycles or when they're dysregulated. And it's part of the connected parenting process under the pillar of connect. The connected parenting process has 4 pillars. The first is calm, and the primary tool under calm is the calm break. And I talked about that in a couple episodes ago. The second pillar is connect, and the primary tool for connect is the connection tool, which we're going to talk about today. The next pillar is limit set. That's how to set boundaries with kids, and we use the limit setting formula. And then the last pillar is correct, and we do a correction conversation, and the tool is restitution. So I've tried to simplify parenting as much as possible by creating the connected parenting process: calm, connect, limit, set, correct. And when you are going through a parenting situation with your children, when something comes up, a behavior that you don't like or a dysregulation, they're showing a bunch of big feelings, or they're acting out some emotion, or they're complaining a lot or whatever. Usually it's a behavior that we look at, and that means parenting is probably necessary because the behavior is off track. I want you to be thinking of the connected parenting process. Am I calm? That means, am I emotionally regulated, while also am I in a place where I can view this behavior from a compassionate lens, or at least neutral? Am I able to see this behavior as a form of communication of my child's big feelings, or their needs, or their wants, or their frustrations, right? Seeing their behavior as an expression of what's going on inside. Their behavior, your children's behavior, is really a great window or a clue to what they might be needing or feeling inside. So when you can look at behavior as a window into your child's emotional health, emotional well-being, physical health, all of those things, then you will be more neutral and even move into some curiosity and compassion. That's what calm is all about. Then you want to connect your child's external behavior with their emotions. You want to connect what's going on outside of them, what you can see, to what could be going on inside of them that they can't see, that they can't understand. When we think about connection, yes, it has to do with our own emotional connection with our kids. We want to have a good relationship with them. We want them to have a good relationship with their siblings and with anybody in their life, of course. But really, connection in the connected parenting process is a lot more about connecting your child to themselves, giving them an understanding, an awareness of how they're thinking, how they're feeling, and helping them learn to manage their feelings in healthy ways and learn how to shift their thinking so that they have a better mindset about whatever's going on in their life. So connection to me is really about connecting your child with your child, the outside of them, what they can, their behavior with what's going on inside. For every single person, emotional health and emotional well-being always starts with awareness of how we want to act in the world compared to how we are actually acting, and then an awareness of what could be going on inside that might be driving our behavior. What you're doing as the parent is you're really helping your child learn emotional literacy, learn what they are experiencing inside, giving them words to describe that, and then giving them tools to express those emotions and those thoughts and those needs and those desires in healthy and appropriate ways that work for them, that work for the community, that work for your family, giving them just so many tools to help them be able to manage their big feelings and their thoughts and feelings and wants. Part of parenting in a connected parenting way is all about teaching your kids how to know what they're feeling, know how to talk about their feeling, know what to do with that feeling. That's what emotional literacy is. And we do that through connection, particularly through the connection tool. Now, I have taught the connection tool on this podcast many times because it is a primary tool in my parenting process and in my parenting programs. As I've been writing the book, the Emotionally Healthy Kids book, I'm realizing that the tool was incomplete, to be honest, that it used to be narrate what you can see, name the feeling, and then I had this vague thing called now what with a question mark. So the tool was narrate, name, now what? And I realized that having a tool with a question mark is probably not that helpful, right? In my mind, I would want you to be answering, okay, so I'm narrating what I can see, the behavior, the circumstance, what's happening for my kid. I'm naming the emotion, making a guess of what could be happening. And then now what is really your open-ended question of now what can they do with those thoughts and feelings? And I realized that actually, when you're in the moment with your kids, you kind of need to have that answered for yourself. So I have designed the connection tool. I've revamped it and improved it quite a bit. So that's what I want to teach you today on this podcast episode is this new connection tool. You will notice, if you've already been listening for a long time, you'll notice there's similar parts of it. The narrating and naming is still there. But the now what is actually defined. So the new connection tool has 5 parts, which is, I know, complicated, but it's just so you can kind of like walk through when your child is misbehaving or they're having a big feeling cycle, what are you supposed to be doing? So the first part is notice. You're just noticing like, oh, I'm in it. Like this kid is in it. There's something going on, right? Notice. That's your part, right? It's pretty simple. Just take a look at your kid, you know? Okay, so you notice that they're dysregulated. Narrate, name, regulate, coach, and correct. When you're in the moment with your children, you're not going to go through all these parts at one time because coaching and correcting come later once the person is regulated. So I want you to think about with the connection tool, the first thing you're doing is you're noticing, right? Your child starts to feel overwhelmed. Maybe they're tired, hungry, overstimulated, facing frustration. They're having feelings of stress, frustration, anger, disappointment. All those feelings, they start to stack in their body. So your child will look mostly fine, but their nervous system is working really hard, right? So when you're paying attention to your kids, you might see that something's brewing, something's going on with them. They're starting to possibly lose it. I know you know this whole phenomena with your children because you're like, what is going on? Are they off? Like, what is happening? Sometimes there's nothing brewing. You just look and your kid's like, really upset about something. I see this all the time with my own kids, with people I work with when I'm at the store, grocery store, whatever it is, restaurants, that, kids will just show up and they're like, boom, right? They're like upset. So your brain might see this behavior as a threat, but I want you to remember to stay calm, practice your calm break, recognize that your child is starting to show a big feeling cycle and that you are wanting to align. So the calm break is like checking in with yourself, aligning with your value of connected parenting, and then labeling what's happening for you and for your child. And then if you have to like move your body or move your mind, you can. The goal here is that you get used to these big feeling cycles, and when they come, they don't really bother you that much. You're like, oh, here's one. Like you notice it, okay? So being comfortable with your child's discomfort, being comfortable when your kids are complaining, overwhelmed, anxious, when their behavior shows up, they're hitting, they're punching, they're kicking, they're throwing, they're refusing to listen. Any of those behaviors that you see, when you notice those behaviors and you kind of like one of the things that you notice is that you're upset by it, that's your clue that you are about to use the connection tool, that you want to regulate as quickly as possible and show up with your children because your child in that moment isn't needing correction. They're needing connection. So when you notice an off-track behavior or a complaining or a behavior that bothers you, that isn't the time to set a limit. Now, you can set a limit. You can say, honey, I want to listen to you, but I can't hear you when you're crying. Can you say that in a big girl voice? Or I will help you with your problem, but not when you're being unkind to me. Can you try again and speak kindly? You can test in that moment when you notice that something's going on. You can test a limit. You can see whether your child can regulate themselves. It's almost like you're testing whether they're in their big feelings or whether they have access to some logic. So whatever that behavior, that off-track behavior is, if you want to set a limit around it, that's great for you to notice the behavior, set a limit, and then if they're able to correct themselves, awesome. But what parents often do in that moment is they threaten or they accuse their child. Why are you being so nervous about this? This is not a big deal. Or they'll minimize, or they'll go in and they'll insult on a subconscious level. Like, I've already answered the question 4 times. Do not ask me again. Right? Or you did not tell me that you had to be there at 7 o'clock and now you're mad at me. Like, we get defensive, we attack back, we, get annoyed, we try to threaten. If you don't stop what you're doing right now, I am not taking you. You better stop it. Right? I have been there. Everyone listening to this podcast has been there. You are not alone. We tend to, in the beginning of a misbehavior or an off-track behavior or a moment of frustration or stress or conflict between our kids, we tend to not be calm. So when you show up in a way that isn't in a connection, not using the connection tool, that's your invitation to yourself. Oh, I better check myself, right? Check in and check myself and align back to my goals. So the first part of the connection tool is just noticing where you're at. You can set a limit if you can and just see if your child can re-regulate and reset. A lot of times they can't because they aren't used to your limit setting formula yet, or they are too young to emotionally regulate and access that logical part of their brain, or you say it in a way that's so threatening that it continues to activate their nervous system. In general, I would love for you to be able to look at your child's behavior from a neutral lens or even a compassionate lens and just be like, this kid is having a hard time. I love when, parent educators say, the kid isn't giving me a hard time. Instead, they're having a hard time. I think that's a wonderful way to look at their behavior. So you're just noticing what's happening. Okay. Then you narrate what's happening. So you're narrating the dysregulation. So when somebody is dysregulated, they have exceeded their capacity to cope with their emotional upset in a healthy way. So the nervous system is always kind of it's working on being in balance. It's working on keeping itself aligned and in check and not, going into a stress cycle. The body doesn't like to be in stress. It doesn't love cortisol pumps. But there is a moment when that nervous system tips. And if your child is young or they're going through puberty, either way, so basically the whole time you're raising kids, they are easily dysregulated. Their nervous system misfires. It has trouble regulating. It doesn't have access to logic in the same way. Executive functioning isn't developed. Time, consequences, cause and effect, all of those things that help you as an adult stay emotionally regulated most of the time aren't really accessible for your kids at that time. So I want you to have a lot of compassion for them. Like I said, they're not giving you a hard time, they're having a hard time. Or when we think, oh, my kid is acting out. It's like, yes, they're acting out the big feelings inside and they're using their body to emotionally regulate. Narrating what's happening is you kind of being able to say, hey, I noticed you're asking me 4 times where we're going, or I hear you wondering if, I hear you saying that they didn't bring your pizza, or I saw you hit your brother, or I'm watching you touching the dog after I've told you not to. You are narrating the behavior that you see, and you are narrating the circumstances that are happening with your kids. So what you're narrating is what is going on and what you can see. Try to keep it to the facts, like narrating the behavior and narrating the circumstances that may have triggered their feelings and their behavior. Let me give you some examples of narration, just the narrating part. You tell your child that they have to turn off their video game or turn off the television, and then they slam the door or they refuse to do it. And so you would say to them, hey, I said that it was time to turn off the video game, and I noticed that you haven't done it yet. Or imagine you're serving dessert and you're serve one child first, and then the other one gets mad and hits their brother. You would narrate the circumstance. I am giving dessert to each of you, but you're hitting your brother because I gave it to him first. Or it's homework time and your child is starting to play and you've said, come do their homework, and they haven't done it yet. So you would say, hey, I said it was homework time, but now I see that you're playing in the backyard and not coming and sitting at the table. What you're doing is you are narrating the circumstance, and then you're narrating their behavior. Now imagine that your child keeps complaining and complaining and complaining because you had told them that you were going to go to the park and you're not going to the park. You would say, I'm noticing that you are really upset. You're crying a lot because I said we wouldn't go to the park, but now you keep saying, I want to go to the park. I want to go to the park. I want to go to the park. You are narrating what is happening, what is on the outside. Okay. Now, then we name the feeling. So it's really kind of quick together. You would say to your child, I wonder if you are feeling angry that I gave your brother the cocoa first or dessert first. I wonder if you are feeling annoyed that it's time to do homework. I wonder if you are feeling frustrated or disappointed that we're not going to the park anymore. I wonder if you are feeling sad that it's bedtime. So narrating and naming go kind of together. You're narrating the behavior and circumstance. So that kind of helps neutralize what they are doing, and it puts it out like a mirror. Like you're putting up a mirror and you're saying, hey, I'm seeing this behavior and I'm thinking it's because of this circumstance. And then you connect the outside to the inside and you make a guess of what they might be feeling. The best way to improve your child's behavior on the outside is helping them understand how to cope and communicate with their big feelings on the inside. They don't know what to do with disappointment. They don't know what to do with anger. They don't know what to do with jealousy. That's your job with the connection tool, is to teach them how to handle that behavior in an appropriate way. I mean, how to handle that emotion in an appropriate way and not hit their brother, not complain over and over again, not ignore you, not run away from you. So you're kind of narrating, hey, you're running away from me. After I said it was bedtime, I wonder if you're feeling sad that it's bedtime. Or I noticed that you're, outside in the backyard, even though I said homework time started. I wonder if you're feeling frustrated that it's homework time right now. I noticed you're hitting your brother, or you pushed him, or you said he was a stupid head after I gave him dessert first. I wonder if you're feeling jealous that I served your brother first. So this is really an important tool to helping your child become emotionally literate and learn them to self-regulate. What you do after you notice, narrate, and name is regulate. Now, with little kids, well, really with everybody, they don't know how to self-regulate, or it's hard for them. Sometimes they can and sometimes they can't. It's a challenge. And so your job as the parent is to co-regulate. Co-regulate means staying grounded and connected while your child moves through their big feeling. Now, sometimes part of regulation is setting a boundary of, listen, you can stay here and eat this dessert with us as long as you're not name calling. And then they might have their big feeling cycle. They might stomp their feet or, complain or, make a face to you. And that is them working through the emotion. The emotion is pouring out of their body. And what you're working towards is getting it to do less and less damage. They're not going to be perfect. They're still going to have the emotion, and they're still going to have an immature way of handling it. But what you want to be doing is moving them away from a violent way of handling it, or a disrespectful way of handling it, or a way that causes time and energy delays for you, or makes a problem. We want to teach our kids that your feelings are validated. They make perfect sense, of course. So in that regulation process, you're really saying, yeah, of course you're feeling frustrated. That makes sense. What are you going to do with that frustration? Do you want to go run around? Do you want to jump up and down? Do you want to talk about it? Do you want to tell me more things? Do you need to, take a break from the family? What are you going to do with your big feeling? I've got ideas. I'll help you, or you can go do it on your own. This is that process of regulation. So we're noticing the behavior, we're narrating it, we're naming the feeling, and then we're regulating. Either co-regulation or giving our kids a chance to go self-regulate. There are so many ways to regulate a nervous system. Primarily, it always is move the body, move the mind. So moving your body, especially when you're a little kid, is how you're going to discharge those emotions. The emotion gets charged up inside of you. It's like an electrical current, and then it needs to be pushed out through your body. That's how you regulate. It has to go through a process. The feeling gets charged up and it needs to get discharged, if that makes sense. Your child already probably has some pretty good healthy tools that work for them. Maybe it's a hug. Maybe it's not a hug. Maybe it's a kid who needs to go spend time by themselves. Maybe it's a kid who needs to be close to you but not touch you. Maybe it's a kid who needs a strong boundary, who you have to really be clear about. You can be in this kitchen as long as you are not hitting. So limit setting can be helpful in terms of regulation as long as you do it from a very calm, grounded place where you're saying this behavior isn't safe for everybody. And we want you to be around here. What do you need in order to get your body back online? So it takes the emotion out of it. Remember last week I talked about those 3 essential beliefs that your kids need. And that is, I am safe, I am lovable, and I'm capable. Your regulation and coaching strategies need to be grounded in this belief that your child is absolutely wonderful. They're just having a hard time and they need support within the boundary that you are giving them. So regulation is, different for everybody, but everybody has a cycle and the body can regulate itself. It only takes about 90 seconds, to be honest. And I've watched little kids, it feels like an eternity, but if you give them this connection tool, if you narrate what's happening, even to like a 2-year-old or an 18-month-old who you've told no or they can't get down out of the cart, and you say, you want to get down out of the cart and I am saying no, and I think are you really mad at mommy because I'm saying no? And then they say, whatever, they don't even talk. But then you're like, yeah, it's okay to be mad at mommy. I know, but you're going to be able to get out of the cart once we get to the car, whatever. You can kind of soothe them and calm them by giving them mindset and giving them some support. You are going to be the person who regulates your children for a lot of years, especially those young years. Then they kind of can do it a lot more like from 6 years old to 11 or 12. They have some ability. The limit setting is really helpful. They kind of recognize, oh, I'm out of bounds. Let me check myself. And they can start to self-regulate. That's what limits are good for. They can help kids self-regulate kind of within the boundary. And then in early adolescence, the nervous system misfires as much as it did when they were like 18 months to 3. It's like really, really charged up. And so they are going to probably need a lot more compassion again, which you're like frustrated because you're like, you're already 13. Why do you act this? Why are you acting like a baby? I want you to know that their nervous system through puberty is going through a dysregulation process. Actually, just like what happens in menopause and perimenopause, your body has a hard time regulating because the hormones are imbalanced. And that's just kind of these developmental stages that are more nervous system activation than others. I want you to think about noticing, narrating, naming, regulating, then coaching, which next week I'm going to talk a lot more about coaching itself. What coaching really is like regulation is about managing the body, right? Discharging that emotion, the nervous system, getting it back online. Coaching is about helping the child's mind get back online. So when we talk about jealousy, anxiety, disappointment, frustration, overwhelm, your child is going to need your help teaching them how to manage those feelings with perspective, with gratitude, with maybe they don't have enough information. There's something that they don't understand. So they might need some information, not too much, but just enough. Coaching is the part of parenting that happens once everybody is regulated, you and your child, and you do perspective taking. You give them the opportunity to share some of their negative thoughts that they have, like you think I'm a bad kid, or you like my brother more, or my teacher hates me, or I'm stupid, or you never let us go to the park, or you're always working, or whatever that kind of frustration or negative thought that they have. Coaching is the time when you help dispel the myth or give them the data that they need or help them to have perspective, give them the future, tell them what will happen later, that this is temporary, that they're going to get bigger and stronger, that the weekend is going to be really fun, or math is hard, but that's okay. And all of those really wonderful parenting, soothing conversations that you have happen with coaching. So I want to talk more about that next week in specifics. But this week, I wanted to give you the connection tool as a complete model. So it's noticing that your child is having a hard time, narrating the hard time and what they're doing to cope, naming the feeling that's underneath, maybe even some of those thoughts, regulating, helping that body get back online, regulating the nervous system, and then coaching the mindset. Notice, narrate, name, regulate, coach. The last part is correct. This is when we deal with the behavior that happened in the middle of the big feeling cycle. If your child hit their brother, if they spilled all of the jelly beans, if they didn't clean up the toys, if they didn't sit down to do their homework, if they made bedtime go 20 minutes longer, if they didn't brush their teeth, you might not win, quote unquote, win the behavioral battle in the middle of a big feeling cycle. You might not be able to get that limit set and get them to hear you and then comply. That's okay. Short-term compliance isn't our goal. Our goal is long-term self-regulation and long-term resilience. So the correct piece is all about that restitution, that following up later, that last pillar of the connected parenting process where you go through and you say, hey, that behavior did not work and now you need to make that right. That was a mistake. Mistakes are normal, but we have to fix our mistakes. That's the correct piece, the correction piece. In the big feeling cycle or when your child is in the middle of a misbehavior, what you're working on is narrating what's happening, narrating and naming the feelings that are going on, talking through regulating the body, coaching the mindset, and then correcting the behavior. It will feel like your kid is getting away with stuff. Like, what? How can they just say, I hate you and spit and then that's it? Well, sure, if that's it, that's a permissive parenting model. That's not what this is. That's not the connected parenting process. The connected parenting process is calm, connect, limit set, correct. In the regulating the nervous system, you're setting limits. In the coaching, you might be setting limits. You're allowing your kid to reset their behavior once their body is regulated and see if they can or can't. If they can't, then they have to fix that mistake. If any behavior happens, your child is responsible for making the impact of that behavior right. They're responsible for correcting the behavior. So this parenting model isn't a feelings only model. It's feelings first, behavior second. So a lot of times the gentle parenting models and things that you've talked about, validating your kids' feelings, why it feels so permissive and kind of gross, because you're like, how is my kid getting away with this? I would never get away with this when I was a kid. It's because you're not following up with it, because you've got in your head that like, that's mean. Consequences are not mean. Consequences are important to teaching boundaries. That's what limit, set, and correct are all about. But you don't want to rush to correction. You don't want to rush to threats. You don't want to rush to taking away privileges until you have coached the inside from the inside out. Coach what's going on inside of them and helping them make their own connection, connecting the dots between what's going on inside of them to what's going on the outside of them. And then whatever behavior they have, they are responsible for that behavior. Whatever impact their behavior had on their brother, their sister, you, time, money, energy, whatever they have drained from the family or the resources or from you, they need to make that right. That's what correction is all about. Okay, so next week I'll talk about coaching, and then over the next few weeks we'll get more into limit setting and get back into correction as I kind of dole out all these new tools. They're not new, they're just improved, all these improved tools. So this was the connection tool. If you have any questions about it, please reach out to me on Instagram, or you can reply to the email if you're on my email list. You can just ask me a question. If you're like, can you clarify that? That would actually be really helpful for me as I write the book, in case that there's parts that are not working out or confusing. All right, mama and daddies who are listening, and grandparents and nannies and anybody, teachers and anybody else. I hope you have a great week, and let me know how it goes practicing the connection tool. Hey mama, if you enjoyed this podcast episode, I want to encourage you to do two things. The first is go to my website, calmmamacoaching.com, and get a copy of the Stop Yelling cheat sheet. You'll get a step-by-step breakdown of the most important tool I teach, which is the pause break. And you'll also get 40 ideas to reset your body and balance your nervous system so you don't have to yell at your kids. You can get a copy of that, again, at my website, calmmamacoaching.com/stop yelling. The other thing I'd love for you to do is go to Apple Podcasts and rate and review this podcast so that other moms can discover empowering and helpful, practical parenting strategies, just like you did today. Thanks so much for listening to the podcast. It means a lot to be in your ear every week and to support you on your parenting journey.